Welcome to the Ergo to Go podcast, brought to you by the Back School and Ability on Demand. I'm your host, Matt Jeffs. We bring interesting people from the world of ergonomics, on-site prevention, risk management, health and safety and well-being, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to subscribe below, folks, and click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get the latest information on the overlapping fields of ergonomics, health and safety, risk management, human resources, and healthcare right here on the Ergo to Go podcast. We've been speaking with, in segment one, and we'll continue in this segment, the Executive Vice President of the Validation Institute. He's also the principal of the Healthcare Performance Incorporated and the principal of Worksite Health Advisors. He speaks and writes extensively on the performance of healthcare, on clinics, and the management of clinical and financial risk. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the Ergo to Go podcast, nationally prominent healthcare analyst and commentator, Dr. Brian Klepper. Welcome back, Brian. How you doing?
Thanks. How you doing, Matt?
Not bad. And how are we doing? We doing all right so far?
We're doing fine.
All right.
We're doing good. Yeah.
I wanted to peel back a little bit and dive down into a little bit more in this segment and about your analysis work that we're calling high performance healthcare and high performance organizations. When we discuss that, what are we talking about? What are some of the criteria?
Yeah, that's the right question. So the question is, what do we mean when we say high performance?
Mm-hmm.
And who is high performance? And because everybody and his wooden-legged brother want to tell you that they're high performance.
Right.
And the criteria really are very simple. The criteria are, does an organization produce consistently better health outcomes and or lower costs than other organizations in its niche? We're typically talking about high value niches.
Mm-hmm.
So a high value niche would be places where we're spending a lot of money. One of the things that is that's sort of a trick question here is that this isn't about wellness. Wellness is sort of like kissing your sister. It's like no thrill. There's not much there.
Right.
But we're talking about areas like musculoskeletal management, cardiometabolic management, cancer management, dialysis, large claims management, large claims resolution, imaging, drug management, places where the money really is.
Yeah.
And so if you start organizing the healthcare industry by those segments where the money really is, the question is, can you find organizations that do things really differently? Mm-hmm. And as it turns out, there are characteristics of the people who have founded these organizations that are very similar, independent of which area they're working in. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that a minute.
Please.
So it turns out that the sociology of the people who are running these organizations are amazingly similar. The people who found these organizations are typically very passionate and mission-driven. They're data and evidence-driven. They have high subject matter expertise in some niche, and they've deconstructed some problem that they're familiar with, and come up with an entirely different solution than the conventional one that everybody else uses, and then they've monkeyed with it over time. They've refined it over time. Mm-hmm. And they have become so fluent in their ability to work with this problem that they're very confident about their ability to have an impact on it. And so typically, they're very willing to put their fees at financial risk against the performance targets that they claim they can achieve, mm-hmm. which nobody in conventional healthcare is willing to do. And that's one of the litmus tests.
Once again, skin in the game. That
skin in the game.
Yeah, willingness to go out. I will go out on that limb. I'm so confident in what I do. So you look for that in the founders of these.
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of the question. So I get 5 to 10 calls a week from organizations that want to tell me how wonderful they are.
I'll bet.
And and I have that has happened because now I've developed a group of employers who come to me and say, so what do you got? What's in your bag of tricks? And it's important to understand that this isn't just about clinical management. I think of each of these organizations as risk management modules, and they cover the waterfront of clinical, financial, and administrative healthcare risk management. So somebody who's managing musculoskeletal care, that's a clinical risk management function. Somebody who's managing drug spend, that's financial management. Somebody who's doing a review of claims, that's administrative. And all of them are important.
Go ahead.
The most important, of course, is care, is clinical. But I will give you examples of some that are administrative that are hugely important as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what questions do you ask to figure out whether somebody's real or not?
Right.
And this is going to sound a little dumb, but I've developed 6 questions, and it took me 2.5 years to develop the questions, which should give you pause right from the beginning, like maybe this isn't the brightest bulb, but what are you going to do? So the first question is, so you run this organization. Can you tell me what it is that you do that allows you to get a better result? And most often, organizations can't tell me in a paragraph what they do. They talk around it.
Mm-hmm.
Big clue.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, show me longitudinal data, long-term data that demonstrates that you consistently get better health outcomes and or lower cost. If you can't do that, you're completely out of the game. Third, show me client testimonials, and I would like their contact information, please, so I can talk to them myself, that will attest to the fact that the data that they've shown you is real and that you can execute without pissing people off.
Right.
Fourth, can you scale? It's really great that you can do this in Madison, Wisconsin, but I need this done in Providence, Rhode Island, or Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I need to get exactly the same result for the same cost. Can you do that? 5, are you sticky or enduring in your impact? It's really great that you can get a good result after three months. Are you still getting the same impact after 3 years?
Yeah.
And then the last one is the key, and that is, are you confident enough in your results that you are willing to give a performance guarantee? You're willing to put your fees at risk against the performance targets you claim you can achieve.
So this is a distillation that you've come up with over 2 years of working this down into this half a dozen pointed questions.
Right. Yeah. And I think those questions have become part of the foundation of another project that I'm involved with a guy named Vidar Jurgensen and the Validation Institute, to create the Health Value Awards, which is a quest to identify very high-performing healthcare organizations.
It almost sounds like you've devised an application process with this half a dozen questions. Is that something they have to fill out in advance?
Yeah. When I will get letters from organizations that are trying to get my attention,
right,
and they'll say, look, I know about your 6 questions, and because I know that you're going to ask me for them, here they are in advance. Here's the answers in advance. So there's an organization that I will talk about in another context, mm-hmm, out of Tallahassee, called Integrated Musculoskeletal Care, which I believe is of the organizations that I've found, it is the most evolved, and it is the best organization of its type that I have found.
Mm-hmm. But
one of the things that they've done that is remarkable is they came out of a tradition that is based on a subdiscipline of physical therapy called the McKinsey method, also called mechanical diagnosis and therapy. Your audience would know this.
And I'm very familiar, yep.
And they were practitioners of that. And they opened a practice in Tallahassee, and soon after that, they got as a client the health plan in Tallahassee, Capital Health Plan, which is a very high quality health plan according to NCQA.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they ran it as a conventional PT practice, but they did something differently, and that is that they put in a continuous quality improvement process.
Beautiful.
So they identified key performance indices for what they were doing, and they looked at those numbers on every patient that they intervened with. And when the numbers didn't work out like they thought they would, or that they thought they should have, they stopped, they rethought their entire model, and they course corrected their treatment pathway. And they did this over and over and over and over and over again, like turning a crank, with small incremental changes in their model over time, so that after a very few years, it had organically evolved from what it had been to something entirely different. And the numbers that they began to get as a result were spectacular. So it has evolved into their own fully fleshed out musculoskeletal management paradigm. And the numbers that they get now for their clients are evidenced by a study that was done on their work with Michelin. So when they moved into working with Michelin in Greenville, South Carolina, which is where Michelin's national headquarters are, North American headquarters are, they dropped dropped musculoskeletal surgeries by 76%.
Wow.
They dropped imaging by half, injections by 2/3. They got dramatic improvements in pain reduction, range of motion, activities of daily living in half the recovery time and at half the cost of conventional orthopedics.
This is so validating. This is, I can't claim those kind of numbers, but having 6 years on site at a big paper mill in Florida, we saw the very same thing. When you position the right physical therapist upstream as your musculoskeletal gatekeeper, suddenly you're able to triage cases in real time. I remember my own metrics were 25-to-1 triage. A lot of cases, all they needed was the information on the front end. Brian, I want to dig deeper into this. Let's bring that back in our third segment. Because I think you've got some really important information here that I want to dig down to a little bit more. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I want to say one more thing.
Sure, please.
If you think about how important it is that this organization did this.
Right.
I mean, this is musculoskeletal management and orthopedics specifically is a worldwide problem.
Yep.
Orthopedics does not have an accurate diagnostic methodology. There's a big literature about this, and it's global. And this organization has built basically a better mousetrap. And this is a quarter of everything we spend in healthcare.
You're right.
They deserve the Nobel Prize.
I'm with you.
It's like discovering a vaccine. It's that big.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the stuff that we're talking about, processes that should be applied to every medical domain, and that would fundamentally change how all healthcare works worldwide.
So
that's what we're really talking about here.
That's the magnitude. Again, when you look at USDOL data on non-fatal injuries, it's musculoskeletal is the big hunk. Slips, trips, and falls is right behind it. Both things physical therapists can work with, with an aging workforce and vestibular issues. I mean, but we'll get into that. This is very encouraging. I'm so glad to hear this. Can you hang out for one more segment?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Good stuff. You've been listening to and watching the Ergo2Go podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jeffs, brought to you by the Back School and Ability on Demand. We bring you interesting people like Dr. Brian Klepper from the world of ergonomics, on-site injury prevention, health, safety, well-being, risk management, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to subscribe below and click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get the latest info from the overlapping fields of ergonomics, health and safety, risk management, human resources, and healthcare right here on the Ergo2Go podcast. Until next time, let's be safe, let's be smart. Let's be helpful. Let's get to work, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.